right, South African rugby fans are in for a big day with the Springboks taking on Wales in Durban as the inaugural Nations Championship continues. The Boks have started strongly with wins over Scotland and England as well, and will want to keep that momentum going at Kings Park. There is also huge excitement around the Junior Springboks, who face France in the World Rugby Under-20 Championship final in Georgia. To unpack both matches, we are joined by RSG sports journalist Jody Hendricks. Jody, very good afternoon to you. Welcome to Week in Review. Thank you so much for joining us. Of course, we've seen the Springboks doing quite well at the Nations Championships. We saw them win their game against England, and they also won the one against Scotland. What has impressed you most about their campaign so far?
Good afternoon, Nicole. What can we say? World champions back-to-back, obviously the #1 team in the world. And it's going to be difficult for any team coming to South Africa and trying to beat the Springboks. And we saw that, like you said, with the previous two games, England and Scotland. It's going to be difficult for Wales this afternoon in Durban. I think if we just look at the depth and the changes that Rassie makes every week, no matter who he picks, I think they'll go out as the favourites. So for me, I think if they can build on the momentum, when they're down, they regroup, they pull together and they come through the match like we saw against Scotland. But I think Wales are just a step too high this afternoon.
Jody, do you think that this inaugural Nations Championship has lived up to expectations? And I mean, it being an inaugural tournament, what do you make of the contribution that it will have and the value that it has to rugby as a whole?
Well, I think World Rugby didn't really have another choice. There were too many tournaments, like the Six Nations, like the Rugby Championship. So they needed one product where all the unions, the international top 14 teams, would be able to compete, top 12 teams would be able to compete, Nicole. So I think this is maybe there'll be some teething problems. They'll see it's a touch and go situation where it might change in the future. But I think there was definitely pressure on World Rugby to come up with a product to give to the nations that they were able to compete, to say every year, and not every 4 years like with the World Cup, but every year they'll be able to say, okay, this is the best team in the world and this is how we got there. So I think even using that formula, it's quite clear that the Springboks are the best team in the world.
Of course, we are seeing new faces and combinations being tested, which, I mean, is no surprise. One thing that is consistent is that Coach Rassie will definitely surprise us all the time. Which players have strengthened their long-term Springbok claims in your view?
I think the guy that's standing in for Siya Kolisi is captain, a two-time World Player of the Year, Pieter Steptoe, has been phenomenal. The first two games against England and Scotland, whether it be at lock or flank, I think we're safe hands when it comes to the leadership of the Springbok team, with Siya not being there, slightly still nursing an injury. And then obviously a scrum half like Grant Williams, he's shown that he's probably the best #9 in the world at the moment. The French might argue Dupontis, but Grant Williams has been fantastic whenever he's put on the green and gold jersey. And I think Malcolm Marx, World Player of the Year, only second start this afternoon for the Springboks in the season. He's got a point to prove that he's still the best. There was a lot of debate around his selection as World Player of the Year. And I think we can go through the whole team. But obviously, in this game, what makes it exciting, the four youngsters that Rassie chose for the game. Ruben van Heerden, an experienced lock, 29 years old. Carlos Sadi, coming from an overseas team to make his debut for the Springboks. And then the two youngsters who played for the SA Under-20 team last year, Jaco Williams and Vusi Moyo, both from the Sharks. Williams very fast out wide. And then, yeah, the guy with all the skills at #10 and being touted as a future Springbok fly-half great. Vusi Moyo, I'd love to see what he brings this afternoon. Two experienced guys with Kobus Reinach at #9 and Damien Dalende in his 99th test to protect him.
So looking at the game this afternoon, of course, Wales come into this match as underdogs. How do you see that game going, and where do you see their biggest threat to South Africa?
Yeah, so Dewey Lake at hooker, coming up against the World Player of the Year, Malcolm Marx. Dewey Lake as captain for Wales. I think that will be two players giving it their best to each other. Obviously, Josh Adams, experienced wing, he'll be coming up against the young Jaco Williams. And then Edwards, the fly-off for Wales. He'll be coming up against, like I said, Vusi Moyo, a guy who's been touted as a future Springbok great #10. He's going to have a tough test against an experienced Edwards at #10 for Wales this afternoon. So I think they're quite a settled team, but I think the Springboks like I said, even with the youngsters, will just be too strong for them.
Jody, we are running out of time, so very quickly, please, before you go, there is another game this afternoon, of course, the Junior Boks. I think they play at 6:30 this evening. Now, they've been outstanding throughout the World Rugby Under-20 Championship. What has stood out most about this team for you? And how do you expect also the game later today to go?
I think they're the favourites. They're following the blueprint that the senior team's been following for the last couple of years. They are the defending champions. Don't take that away from them. Some world-class players. And also, the most important thing that these players must now realise that they are being seen by Rassie Erasmus. Some of the guys like Jaco Williams, Vusi Moyo, who played for the under-20s last year, are now making their Springbok debut. So if these guys perform today or this evening, they could possibly be in the Springbok setup in the next year or two. So they should know that they are being seen, and a great performance this evening to defend their title, hopefully well thumbs, and they come back with a trophy, will give them that right motivation to know that, okay, we are the junior world champions now, on to the next step. So I think they are the out-and-out favourites for this evening's game.
Jody, thank you so much for that. That is, of course, Addis here, sports journalist Jody Hendricks, coming to us all the way from Durban, where we are expecting to see the Springboks take on Wales this afternoon at 17:40. And, of course, at 6:30, we are going to be seeing the Junior Boks taking on France as well. So lots of rugby coming your way.